and welcome in Brew Crew to another episode of the Dynasty Brews podcast. We are streaming live on YouTube and Twitter right now, and we have fantastic guests with us today. We have Debbie Matt Jackson with us, and we have Chad Parsons. How's it going, guys? How's your nights going?
Going good, man. Thanks for having us. Glad to be on. Night's going good. I'm excited to be on here talking some rookies, rookie wide receivers, man. It's gonna be a good time.
Heck yeah. Talking Dynasty, talking rookies, and again, you finish out your night like this. Not a bad day, no matter how it went.
I like that. Yeah, man. You can just sit around with a couple guys, fucking talk some Dynasty football. Not much is better than that. So guys, before we get right into the buy sell. Justin Andrew will be coming on a little bit later. He's just kind of hung up right now with an issue with his family right now. So he'll be coming on hopefully for our rookie segment. So look out. Andrew's coming on, and I know he's got some hot takes for the rookie wide receivers. So let's start off, guys. I want to do this segment. It's called Buy Sell. You guys know what Buy Sell is. I'm going to give you a name. It's going to be somebody who was, an off-season move, and you're going to tell me if you kind of buy him right now, or if you're going to pass on him and try and sell him in your dynasty leagues. So we're going to start out with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson obviously had a slump year, but you look at the past 3 years, minus this year. 2020 QB6, 2019 QB4, 2018 QB9. 2017 QB1. He's going into a great situation, guys. He's got Devontae Williams. He's got Cortland Sutton. He's got Jerry Jeudy. He's got Tim Patrick. He's got Albert O over there. He's got tons of weapons. Is this guy going to be a top 5 quarterback for you guys this year? Are you buying or selling top 5 finish? Or are you buying or selling him on your team this year? Let's go with you, Matt. Start it off.
I'm personally buying him on my team right now. I mean, you look at the roster that he's got around him. He's got Javonte Williams coming back. A lot of people's Twitter universe is one of their favorite running backs coming into this year. A guy that his prices get a little too expensive for me to buy, but still, I mean, had a committee with Melvin Gordon last year and just absolutely dominated. Physical bruiser running back that's got really great speed, really great wiggle in the hole. I mean, he's got a great running game, and he's also got 2 wide receivers in Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, and take what you want to feel about Jerry Jeudy. I know he's a hot button topic in the Twitter community right now, but I mean, he's got 2 fantastic receivers. That offense is going to be good. I think this easily puts the Broncos right into playoff contentions. I don't know about Super Bowl contentions. They've still got a lot of other teams to contend with in the AFC. AFC is a far more stronger conference than the NFC is. So, I mean, they're a playoff team for sure. Not sure about Super Bowl contender yet, but when you look at Russell Wilson, I'm going to draft right here for reference. This draft that I'm doing right now, he's coming off the board at QB 11. I'll take QB 11 all day and twice on Sunday at that price.
Wow. QB 11, and you're doing this draft right now?
Doing it right now in the 3rd round.
Chad, is that a buy for you? If you saw him at QB 11, are you automatically saying, yeah, 1,000%, give me that?
Well, he's in that age range for quarterbacks where we start to see discounts, that when you get into the 30s, especially 33 plus, and that's right where he is. Aaron Rodgers, another example, Matthew Stafford, all these guys are in the teens. And I think Russell Wilson, despite the trade, despite the weapons, that he has sort of a glass ceiling of how valuable people are going to have him. And so, yeah, I'm doing, QB 9, 11, somewhere in that range. I'm at 5 or 6. Like, I think him versus Deshaun Watson, when you look at the big picture, are right in that same zone for me. But I'm also lower on guys like Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray. So that's probably where I differ in the market. But Russell Wilson still having mobility, all those weapons. And I just think in that division, especially, you're going to need to throw the ball. You're going to need to score 30 plus points. There's going to be a lot more pressure than some of those Seattle teams that did really well. So I reiterate a lot of the things Matt said, but I think Russell Wilson, I'm firmly 4 or 5 spots ahead of the market on Wilson.
Well, I mean, you look at Deshaun Watson, too. I mean, look at all these guys above him. Deshaun Watson's going to potentially have to deal with a suspension. Mm-hmm. You've got Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, who both had injury problems last year. I mean, he slides right into that range. And honestly, I mean, for that price, I'm taking him every single time.
Yeah.
Well, he's also an example of why you don't even really need to be interested in the first 6, 7, 8 guys off the board, because the next 10 are so good that you're bound to like 3 or 4 of them, and you're bound to get 1 or 2.
1,000%. You hit it right on the head. That is why you kind of wait on those kind of situations, because if he's going to slide to that 9 to 11 range, you're going to get a steal right there. It's just like how people were getting steals with Rodgers last year in his fake retiring, right? Like, people won championships because they were picking Rodgers at like 15, 16, 17, just waiting for the drama to kind of like unveil and for him to, oh yeah, I'm going to stay here. But guys, one quick question for you. Jerry Jeudy or Courtland Sutton, who do you think has a better year? Let's go with you, Matt.
I'm a Courtland Sutton guy. I've tried to be on the Jerry Jeudy hype train. He's that you're talking about another guy that had some injury problems.
Right.
Courtland Sutton, I know, was coming off. What was an ACL last year? I believe
2 years ago. Yeah. He was recovering from an ACL. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
He should be, completely recovered by now. And Courtland Sutton is honestly, in my opinion, the better receiver. He does more as a receiver for me than Jerry Jeudy does. And I think Russell Wilson, he's proven Russell Wilson is a hard guy to take which wide receiver is going to take anyway. The split last year between DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett was just beyond frustrating at sometimes to figure out who was going to get the ball. But I do think that Russell Wilson does favor that bigger wide receiver, and Courtland Sutton fits that mold. So I'm taking Courtland Sutton there and hoping that I'm not wrong about it.
And what a situation to fall into. You look at it, it's almost near identical. You got the, speedy kind of possession receiver, Jeudy to Lockett, and then you got the big guy, Courtland Sutton to DK Metcalf, drops right into the same situation, better run game, a better tight end. Chad, how do you feel about these two?
Yeah, I've been pretty anti-Jerry Jeudy, and a big part of that is look what he's done. In adjusted points per game, he's been in the 60s both years. That is not on some year 3 breakout track at all. You kind of want a season that's in the top 30, 36 to say you're kind of pointing in the right direction by now. And Courtland Sutton has been there and done that. He has, I think it's 2 or 3 of his 4 seasons have been better than Judy's ever done. On a per game basis. So, and I will say, if you're looking for a Tyler Lockett clone, KJ Hamler is the closest thing. I know he's been hurt 2 years in a row, but he's got a lot of similarities to Lockett. Not that he would be anything but a complete dice throw and dart throw there late. But Tim Patrick is a guy that doesn't get a lot of respect. And I would almost kind of go in reverse order of what the ADP would be, which is Judy's through the roof. So I would fade that. I'm neutral-ish on Sutton, and I would say if you get flyers on guys like Hamler, guys like Patrick at a third the price, then that's kind of where I would go, because I think Russell Wilson's going to be relatively agnostic. Who's the open guy? When I extend the play, who's there? And I think Albert O also is getting a little expensive for my taste. So I kind of think go with the cheaper guys, and definitely the answer for me would be anyone but Jeudy, and that's because he's just in the top 15 or 20, and that's too much for me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Freddie Swain was getting touches just as much, whenever, he's created guys like Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett in a sense, Ricardo Lockett was there for a little bit and had some, games. So yeah, I see those points. Tim Patrick has also been signed to an extension, so he's definitely somebody to look out for. But speaking of receivers, let's move on. Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, I'm just going to lump them both into this because they're both kind of perennial top 5 wide receivers prior to this season. Does movement change your standings on these guys? Does Devontae Adams going and playing with his college QB Derek Carr change anything for you guys? And Tyreek Hill, obviously he's going to a place where he's not really going to be, you expect him to be a deep ball threat, but at the same time, Tua was averaging 6.8 yards per attempt. Like, he's not really the biggest deep ball thrower. I think he was around 30th as far as deep ball attempts last year. So was that just because he didn't have somebody, or was that because he's just not that capable? Let's start with you this time, Chad.
I'm definitely out there as a Tua skeptic. And I think they are trying to give him every single opportunity in terms of weapons. But when you go from Patrick Mahomes to Tua, no offense to anyone out there that thinks Tua is a top 5, 6 guy or something, some of those really high takes on him. But I think this is bad news for Tyreek Hill. I usually don't move guys when they move teams like this. I usually don't make a big move on my rankings, but Tyreek Hill did. I had him up in the top 5 or 6. Now he's down in the mid-teens. I mean, that is a pretty graphic move for me. I know in that zone, you might only have 2 tiers of about 10 wide receivers in aggregate because it's so crowded in that zone. However, this is not a great fit. And you got Jalen Waddle, who's on a year 1 success track to a strong degree. And now you got Mike Gesicki back. I mean, they have good weapons. And this is a team that probably is going to keep it relatively close to the vest because that's kind of what Tua is. I mean, I don't think this pop gun arm, and frankly, Tyreek Hill, half of the routes he was running with the Chiefs were similar to what we saw from Jalen Waddle. A lot of short stuff, a lot of possession stuff. Mm-hmm. Both of these guys are capable of more. I just think this is a horrible fit with Tua and what Miami's probably going to have to do to try to win the most games with their current iteration. So things may improve, but I really didn't move Devontae Adams. He shifted down slightly just because I think the ceiling of maybe being wide receiver 1 or 2 overall probably isn't there with the Raiders, but I think he's going to be able to sustain a mid wide receiver 1 type season here with the Raiders. So I just think that I didn't move Adams much at all, but I moved Tyreek Hill quite a bit off of this news.
So I got a question for you sorry, Matt. Let me just get this out there and you can answer this one too. Does Tyreek Hill coming into this offense and Mike McDaniel saying, hey, I'm going to use him kind of like Debo, does that change up anything? Because obviously we saw with the Debo role, it obviously boosted him to wide receiver 3 this year. You know, he got to run a lot. And when you have the wheels like Tyreek Hill, obviously, you know, he can take a freaking, you know, a screen pass over here that was going for like negative yard and take it straight to the house like it's nothing. So does that change it for you guys?
I'll just say that I don't buy it. I know that using Tyreek in that Debo role sounds cool when you say it, but those two are not the same players.
He's 30 pounds lighter.
He's not the same body frame as Debo Samuel is, and he's not going to be able to withstand and do the same things in between the tackles that Debo Samuel does. So right. I don't personally buy that one bit. Tyreek Hill is a huge sell for me right now. I mean, he's going to a team that was, I believe, top 15 in rushing last year. Mike Gesicki looked great the entire season. He finally had that big breakout. They've got Jalen Waddle who had his first year breakout. I mean, he's going to have to compete with a lot more than he was having to compete with, and he's tied to a quarterback that is not Patrick Mahomes. Tua did improve significantly in his play later on in the season, but he's not good enough, I think, to be able to do the kind of things that Tyreek Hill was getting in that Chiefs offense. I mean, I'm selling Tyreek Hill at that price. I mean, he's still going in second and third round in startups right now. That's not a price that I'm comfortable in paying. I'm a huge price guy. So if you get above the price that I'm wanting to pay, like, I don't care how good you are, like, I'm out. I'm going to get somebody else that is better price. I mean, that's how I play the game. And you look at Devontae Adams, I mean, he's getting slept on because he's getting up there in age, but he's going to play with his college quarterback in Derek Carr. They're going to pepper him with targets. I mean, like they peppered Hunter Renfrow with targets last year, except on steroids. I mean, he's going to go and be a top 5 wide receiver, and he's going later than top 5 wide receiver in startups right now.
Just to have one thing historically that if you have a bottom half quarterback, and let's say Tua is there, and I would think if you start lining guys up for this coming season, Tua is probably outside the top 16 for almost everybody. The average wide receiver 1 finish in fantasy is wide receiver 27. So even if you say that Tyreek Hill is the wide receiver 1, Jalen Waddle go sit over there, the average result historically is wide receiver 27. So wide receiver 12, 6, even 15, 18 is well above the historical average. So just keep that in mind when you start saying, that, Tyreek's still going to be top 5 guy. Okay, well, just know how high are you projecting Tua in that, and are you projecting Jalen Waddle to be an absolute ancillary number 2?
Well, this is a perfect segue into the next one. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks. Derek Carr, Tua Tagovailoa, obviously Chad and Matt, you guys are obviously off on the Tua train here. But Derek Carr, he kind of shows a little bit of potential, maybe especially with the uptick in touchdowns that he could have this year. I think last year he was kind of showing something, and then unfortunately the Henry Ruggs situation happened. And I think Henry Ruggs kind of, not having that downfield threat that, the Raiders offense has obviously needed for a long time. has kind of hindered him a little bit. You know, he had to do more short, intermittent routes with Hunter Renfrow. Darren Waller was off the field for a good portion of the season. Now you got Davante Adams, who can work at all levels of the field. Derek Carr last year threw 77 deep ball attempts. That was 5th in the league, but he also threw only 66 or 36% of them completed. So, you know, he was struggling. I would struggle too if I had to throw to Bryan Edwards as a deep ball threat. So where do you guys sit on Derek Carr?
I think he's that prototypical quarterback that is just perennially like shit on every single year and does nothing but put up the stats and get the finishes that you want to see. I mean, he's being drafted as a QB2 right now. I mean, he's not in the top 12 quarterbacks drafted. And there are some weeks last year, I mean, I had him on several rosters. There are some weeks where he was well within that QB1 finish most weeks. So I don't understand. I don't know what else Derek Carr has to do to not be crapped on in the Twitter community. I mean, the dude is just a baller. He just puts up the stats, and we continue to draft him as a mid QB2. I mean, I understand once it gets past those top 8 guys, it gets ugly. But give me Derek Carr QB2. I mean, all day, right?
Would you guys? Sorry, real quick. Would you feel comfortable with him in a single QB, like say redraft league, as your QB1?
Well, I think you do a committee. I mean, I think, you know, when you wait and you double up and you say, well, let me take Derek Carr, and like maybe you're taking, you know, Malik Willis, you know, or someone that has a lot of rushing upside that you say, if I get lightning in a bottle, maybe this works. But my backstop is going to be a Derek Carr type, because Derek Carr's been the high floor guy. And I think the reason he gets crapped on, you know, that Matt was alluding to, is that he really hasn't had that giant season, you know, fantasy-wise. I know he's in the MVP conversation a few years ago, but he's always been in that sort of top 20, but never really in the top 3, 4, 5. And I think that when that goes on for 5 to 10 years, you kind of get a stigma that you're just going to be there. You're going to be a warm body kind of effect. So I do think Derek Carr has a chance for a career year. You look at the weapons, and you said, what was missing? The alpha wide receiver. Darren Waller was basically that. Hunter Renfrow finished in the top 20. I mean, but you say, what's missing? Well, frankly, a Davante Adams type or Tyreek Hill, or, you know, someone at the top of the depth chart that Henry Ruggs was not really on track to do even before exiting. Bryan Edwards has not worked out or been that guy. So when you put Adams, it puts everybody else down a peg, and all of a sudden, Darren Waller's probably going to be uncheckable. Hunter Renfrow on third down is going to be, I remember Cole Beasley in Dallas. Like, you could not cover that guy. Why? Because they had other guys around him. So I just think that this is going to be good for everybody, including Josh Jacobs, that people are sleeping on. So this is all good for the Raiders. And again, a division where points matter, and it's the division of death. They're just going to beat up on each other with these big, high-scoring pinnacle games on national TV probably. So I think Derek Carr is the front man for that, the point guard, and he's going to distribute. And he hasn't had that many, you know, top 10, top 12 seasons, but this is probably his best shot to do it in the last 4 or 5 years.
I mean, you look at it, he's consistently being drafted around the same frame as, you know, your Kirk Cousins, Carson Wentz. Last year, he was getting drafted in the same areas like Baker Mayfield, Tua Tagovailoa. Which one would you rather have right now?
Carr, 1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. Because, I mean, he's the only one that has multiple weapons at that point. Like all those guys you were talking about, Ryan, he has Pittman, maybe Mo Alley Cox. I mean, Taylor, obviously. You know, Wentz, he's got Gibson and McLaren. And then Tua, we have all said it, you know, we don't really trust Tua at this point. So you look at Carr, you got a running back, you got 2 wide receivers, you got a tight end. That's all you need. I mean, that's more than you need. But
he can have a running back 1, a top 6 tight end, and a top 6 wide receiver, and then another guy in the top 24. You start doing the rough math on that back of the napkin. Where does the quarterback finish if those are the 4 connected weapons? I mean, it probably is in the top 10.
Yeah, exactly. All right, he's here. Justin, can you hear everybody?
Hey, fellas. Sorry, I didn't see you brought me in. Must have zoned out. Sorry about that. How's everyone doing? In spite of all your Derek Carr love over here.
Well, we'll move on to Deshaun Watson. We'll let you start off with that one. How do you see Deshaun Watson's dynasty value, Justin? Do you see him as somebody, you know, pending there's probably going to be a suspension going on, but do you see him as somebody you're still obviously going to draft as a QB1 because it's dynasty and you want to have him for the next, however many years he plays. I think what's his contract? Is it like a 5-year deal at this point?
Yeah, 5 years, fully guaranteed, I want to say. Other than that base $1 million salary. I think Chad hit it on the nose. I follow him over at Football Guys and Under the Helmet. He's a dude that I've actually been trading for over the last 18 months in spite of all the stuff that's been going on. I don't necessarily love the landing spot in a run-first offense, but I'm going to take the proven talent here, and I'm going to take him. He's back up into the first round in startups, I think. I've been buying him everywhere, so I trust him as my QB1, especially even in single QB leagues. I have no problem taking Deshaun Watson and rolling with him week in, week out.
I like that take. I really do. Chad, how do you feel about Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, you got to take the macro view. And if he misses 4 games, 6 games, 8 games, I mean, go back to last summer. He was QB 14, 15, 16 in that zone. And that was just under the assumption, hey, you're going to get nothing this year. Well, you didn't get anything last year. And now here you are where he's in line to play. Is that half the year? Is that 3/4 of the year? Is that all the year? But you're going to get a lot. They brought in Amari Cooper. I think the weapons are sneaky fine. And to think that they're done, that Jarvis Landry might not be back, that's a possibility. You have other free agents. They could be drafting someone as well. But Amari Cooper is a staple element. David Njoku being back, I think that's really going to help him. And Deshaun Watson, it's not like he's had great weapons the whole time. Yes, he's had DeAndre Hopkins. But other than that, let's not pretend like the weapons have been great in aggregate. And he's had 3 top 8 finishes in his career. He was on a basically right there, 1 and 2 with young guys like Patrick Mahomes if we rewind a couple seasons. So you're getting that now in the 20s, and he's rebounded quite a bit market value wise. I mean, now it seems like it's almost been an overreaction because now he's back in the QB 6, 7, 8 range. And that's up 5, 6, 7 spots. And it's more, I think, the grand jury, that not turning sideways on him, and the fact that we're now seeing a plan to play. And that's probably the biggest part. Not the trade, not the actual situation with Cleveland, but an actual projection to play this year, where I think 12 months ago, people did not have any indication. And that uncertainty and that risk is what had people dropping him such an egregious level based on his historical profile.
1,000%. Imagine getting him last year. Like, I had him for Best Ball Mania, hoping that he was going to find a way to play last year. But Matt, tell me, Deshaun, what tickles you about him?
When he plays as a top 5 quarterback. So, I'm 100% buying him everywhere I can right now. I just got him, that startup that I mentioned earlier on the podcast, just took him in the first round, back in the first round. And I think that's right where he slides in at.
You mean where Trevor Lawrence was last year?
He's not Trevor Lawrence.
No, I'm just saying it's funny how last year we had Trevor Lawrence all the way up, the back half of round 1, and now he's still pretty high in round 2. But that I just never understood why you would take a guy like Trevor Lawrence at the top of a first round in a startup over several other proven guys, like you were saying. Like Watson is an easy pick there.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm still not giving up on Lawrence yet, but he's got some improvement to do, and a lot of that was coaching. But
let me ask you, because this whole thing is comical to me. You're sitting on there. Was Trey Lance available? Because I don't understand why Trey Lance is going in the first round when there's so many ways that this could go sideways on you.
Yeah, and
in a position loaded with talent,
Trey Lance went 3 picks after I was the one that took Deshaun Watson there, and Trey Lance went 3 picks after I took Watson. So yeah. Give me Watson. He's a top 5 quarterback when he finishes. His last full season, he threw for just under 5,000 yards, 33-7 TD interception ratio, and that was with the Houston Texans. He's going to a far better roster, pass catching wise. He's got a great running game. Yes, we can be a little worried about it's a run first offense, but you don't go out and go pay what they paid to get Deshaun Watson to not use Deshaun Watson.
What I mean by run first is I think what's going to happen is when you get down in the red zone, I think the biggest buy right now really might be a guy like not Kareem Hunt, but Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb, when you get down in that goal line area, he could actually be a sneaky value play. Because now people think that he's there, he's going to get all these. I just think we might see a little bit lower of the rushing touchdowns from Deshaun that we've seen in the past, but he's never been healthy for a season and not finished as QB5 or better. So,
and I guess what I was just saying was like I think that they revamped that offense a little bit from what we've seen in the past few years to tailor it more towards Deshaun Watson.
Well, and also keep in mind Watson got pummeled in Houston. That offensive line was porous. His sack numbers were among the NFL leaders. So he's going to probably be feeling like this is easy. This is paint by numbers with play action, with a strong run game. So his efficiency, and he was already one of the most efficient quarterbacks for his age and his career arc so far at that point. That could go even higher.
Yeah, very good points, guys. Deshaun Watson is definitely a buy because, I mean, come on. Why wouldn't you? It's surprising, Matt, that he went, what was it, 9 that you said in your draft?
He went at the I traded up to get him. I traded up to the 8 spot to get him, but he went at QB. Let me look for. I took him at QB 8.
Yeah, I mean that's a little surprising because I mean outside of the guaranteed top 5, I would have him as a 6, even with the suspension. I'm like, the suspension is the only thing that puts him out of the top 5 currently for me right now because if I could have those guys for however many games guaranteed, but otherwise, I mean, shoot, man. I mean, he's 26 years old. He just signed a guaranteed contract. He's got weapons. Why wouldn't you roll with him?
But even if you're worried about Watson and his value there and missing games, nothing stops me from trading a first round pick to get back up. And if you're drafting Watson and you want to win now, I mean, you look at a guy like Aaron Rodgers. What's his value at a first round pick now? I mean, you could easily take Rodgers and then trade a first. If you're in a win now mode and you have Watson, I wouldn't mind giving up a first to go get a guy like Rodgers. I know that he's looking like he's kind of at the back half of his career, but as we've seen with people lately like Brady, a first today could stretch you into 5 seasons.
Yeah, that's very true. So let's finish it out with these 2 quarterbacks. Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz essentially look like they got traded for each other when you look at it. So guys, who do you have more stake in? Let's go with Matt first.
Matt Ryan, 100%. I have, as an avid Eagles fan for my entire life, I have watched enough Carson Wentz to tell you that he is not the Carson Wentz that we got that one MVP caliber season. I mean, after that injury, something broke, and I'm not sure what it was that broke, but he is making terrible decisions, and we saw a little bit of that last year, getting sacked and just kind of throwing the ball up in the air and straight into an interception. I mean, he did that. He's done that more than one time in a season, and I mean, just doesn't make great decisions, isn't accurate. Has got the obvious injury history. I'm staying as clear away from Carson Wentz as I can right now. Matt Ryan is going to a team where he's got the best running back in the NFL and Jonathan Taylor. Michael Pittman had a huge step breakout this season, and he's got that offensive line where he's not going to nearly take the amount of hits that he did last year in Atlanta. I mean, he's upgrading from Mayfield to Quentin Nelson. I mean, that he's going to stay on his feet way more this year than he did last year. Matt Ryan is leagues and miles going to be a better quarterback than Carson Wentz this year, and I would bet every dollar that I have on that.
There you go. Go ahead, Parsons.
Yeah, I agree. Matt Ryan has always been underrated, especially when he's gotten into his 30s. How about 8 seasons in the top 12 in his career? So talk about a proven guy. And Russell Gage actually needs to probably give him about half of his paycheck this year, because I don't think Russell Gage would be a thing, or maybe even be in the NFL if it wasn't for Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan can do a lot with a little. I'm not the biggest Pittman fan. I would also highlight someone like Paris Campbell, who's flashed a little bit, hasn't been healthy. He could be absolutely one of those ancillary guys that gets forgotten, post-type sleeper types that Matt Ryan just pummels with crossers, and that speed just kills. So I think Matt Ryan, with that run game, that protection, strong basis there, and that's kind of what he had when he first started with the Falcons. It was very ball control, very take the quarterback and just have them play a role, have them be a facilitator within the offense. And I think he can go back to that at 37 and probably extend his career. I hope this works out for the next 2-3 seasons, because a lot of times in your later 30s, these types of quarterbacks, the Phillip Rivers types, that they end up not getting a lot of respect, but I still think he has top 15, top 18, which is still well above. I mean, he's drifting to the 30s in the position, which is pretty crazy when you consider, let's put all these rookies ahead of them. Let's put these guys that haven't really done jack. And I'd rather take the older guy that has been there, done that. And you're kind of worried about the fall off, and I think Ben Roethlisberger falling off so hard is probably going to hurt the value of these guys, but that's by market. I think you have to view it case by case, and Ryan has a lot more in the tank than Roethlisberger.
Yeah, and he has a line too, like you said. Like Roethlisberger for his last 2 years had an absolute garbage line that
got punch drunk almost with all the hits he took. Yeah.
If he wasn't so big, he would have absolutely been snapped in half like a couple years ago. But
let's not pretend too that Roethlisberger hadn't started falling off before last season. Matt Ryan hasn't hit that fall off point yet.
Right. True.
Yeah, it's just observe and report every single year. And Matt Ryan, again, until he has that fall off. And in the 30s, you see guys like Eli and Rivers. And we even saw Aaron Rodgers throw 25 touchdown passes in a year, and people thought he was done. By the way, 2 picks during that year. So it happens, the quote-unquote down year. And all you do is buy him the next year.
Yep.
So I'm on an island by myself here, guys. I am all in on Carson Wentz this year over Matt Ryan. I can't. I find myself. Here's the deal. Let's go back to 2019. Carson Wentz. That was his down year, right? He had no wide receiver on that team that caught over 500 yards passing. If we take the last 3 years of their statistics, Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz are about dead even statistically in interceptions per attempt. But Ryan is actually almost 1.5 points better percentage-wise on his touchdown passes. I think Carson Wentz has had dog crap around him for the last 3 years. His best receiver was Michael Pittman last year. He had Jonathan Taylor, which definitely helps. But he's in the last 3 years, he's had 2 seasons with over 30 passing touchdowns and under 10 interceptions. He's not as bad as we make him out to be. He's getting Terry McLaurin, and he's got Antonio Gibson as well in the backfield. So to me, that's still production as long as we assume Gibson gets the work. But I also have no problem with McKissick either. Whoever's getting the passing on work, I think that he's a buy right now. He's so cheap. Everyone assumes that he's done because I'm not oblivious to the fact that if he fails here, he's done. But I think statistically, I think Wentz is fine.
No, Wentz is underrated for sure. He's definitely underrated. I just don't like that it was pitted against Matt Ryan. I wish if it would pick somebody else, I would have been singing the praises just like you, Justin, on Carson Wentz for sure.
My problem is comparatively, it lines up really similarly. I mean, he's going from the Colts, but he's going to the football team or Commanders, whatever we're going to call them now. I mean, you're going from Jonathan Taylor to Antonio Gibson. That's a downgrade. You're going from Michael Pittman to Terry McLaurin. I mean, that's statistically they line up very similarly. And Washington doesn't really have any other receivers outside of Terry McLaurin unless they draft somebody. So I mean, I don't know how you can really sit there and say that he's getting a better team. I guess it's my
I'm not really saying a better team. Really, what I think, at the end of the day, when I look at it, I was telling my buddy the other day, I think that both of these quarterbacks are actually going into better situations that fit their style of play. I don't think Pittman's going to be a burner that's going to beat you deep. I think he's more of an established route runner. I think McLaurin's a great deep ball guy, and I think Wentz has a better deep ball than Ryan at this stage of his career by far. And then I think Matt Ryan goes to a team with great options and Pittman to hit those curls and underneath routes. And he's also got Jonathan Taylor out of the backfield. I just think that the Wentz style of offense with a deep threat like McLaurin, and I assume they're going to get a rookie in this draft. When I say a better team, I probably misspoke a little bit there, but I just like the situation a little bit better based on Wentz's style of play than Matt Ryan. But I'm high on both guys for sure.
Yeah. And that's why I picked these two guys, because identical situations, you're going to two of the worst divisions in the league, period. These guys are going to be winning football games. They're going to be throwing touchdowns. They're going to be doing good, and they have identical weapons. So it's interesting to get perspective because, ADP wise, you would think that these guys would probably be within 1 or 2 of each other. And so people are going to be looking down and they're going to be like, okay, who do I want QB2 to be? Do I want it to be Matt Ryan, who's maybe got a year or 2 left? Do I want it to be Carson Wentz, who is one locker room shy of being kicked out pretty much officially of the league? So it's definitely a dilemma. And it's something that, I think a lot of people that are watching the show are going to be facing. Like they're going to be taking in your intake and being like, oh, okay, you know what? Maybe Matt Ryan with a good line is going to actually last 2 or 3 more years. Or maybe Wentz is really the steal that, I can get for like a 3rd round pick at this point or a 2nd round pick.
I do want to point out how comical the dynasty community is, because we'll avoid a guy like Carson Wentz because we obviously know this is his last shot as a quarterback, like as a starter. But then we're going to go ahead and draft a guy like Jalen Hurts at the top of the second round, whose team, as the report comes out from NBC, is literally actively looking to trade down from their picks for next year in case Jalen Hurts, quote unquote, isn't the guy. That's not something that teams do normally. Like, if you're worried about Wentz, you should also maybe be a little bit weary about Jalen Hurts based on his draft capital invested and the fact that the team is open to getting picks for next year to upgrade that position if it doesn't work out.
I think if you drafted Wentz last year, you were already worried about it. You just got some good returns for it last year, because this is not the first year the community's been like on Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has pretty much they've been on him since he took over the job from Carson Wentz. So, I mean, go ahead, Parsons.
To be fair, Wentz is getting a little bit of a bad rap. He was very good last year. When you look at a lot of the secondary metrics, I look at touchdown interception rate ratios and things like that. That is really a strong predictor of just quarterback quality and should you have the job. He was one of the best in the NFL, and I think when you look at their collapse, losing to Jacksonville was considered like a cardinal sin, and losing a couple games when they could have made the playoffs. And then obviously some of these moments, right? Like for example, Mark Sanchez and the butt fumble. You can never get that out of your head, for example. And Carson Wentz, some inexplicable turnovers at the worst times where you say, what are you doing? It's almost like you're going the wrong way, the type of stuff. So, you put 5-10 of those together over the course of 2-3 seasons where things don't go the right way. And I think it really mars a player that, Justin is saying really has a lot better. When you look at what he's done fantasy-wise, you kind of get some of those ugly plays and ugly moments, and man, this is a must-win or should-win game, and it doesn't come through, and then they win the Super Bowl with Nick Foles. You put all this together, and it looks like, why does this guy have a job? Why is he in the NFL? But fantasy-wise, I mean, he's finished pretty much top 20, top 24. He hasn't been among the worst in the NFL any of those years. So, like the fact that he doesn't have a lot of contract allegiance, he's bounced around a little bit, maybe not the best teammate or leader or whatever it is, but actually putting it on the field, he's been a lot better than the persona that's kind of out there and that just gets spun around like a hurricane on Twitter.
Yeah. Fair enough. Did you want to say anything else, Justin, before we go to commercial?
No, good.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to go to a quick commercial break from our boys at Manscaped, and afterwards we'll be back with the main event, which is the rookie wide receivers.
Can I get a round of applause, everyone? Today, I'm excited to announce Manscaped launched their Ultra Premium Collection. Believe it or not, it's not for your private parts. I'm talking about a leveled-up hygiene routine with your favorite manly scent. This is an all-in-one skin and hair care kit for the everyday man and covers you from head to toe. Literally, Manscaped is trusted below the waist. Now trust them with the rest. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY. We all know how essential that Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 is for that precise trim below the waist. Their advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts to your most delicate areas. But now you can enhance your perfect grooming routine with their Ultra Premium Collection. This package includes Manscaped's premium deodorant, hydrating body moisturizer, body wash, and 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. Plus, a free gift, a 3-pack of lip balm to keep those chappers feeling moist. So get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. One more time, that's 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. The power of attraction is now in a bottle.
The power of attraction is definitely now in a bottle. And now we're going to find out what it is that attracts us to these rookie wide receivers, guys. Holy shnikes. It is the best part of the draft going on right here. So we're just going to kind of go through it, kind of have a time limit. So we're going to get through as many as possible. I want to start off with Drake London. Obviously, it's coming out, former basketball player. He's really good at boxing out defenders. He's got a great contested catch radius. Not the fastest guy. Routes, not amazing. Don't really blow you away. Physical blocker, probably one of the reasons he's really being looked at as Jets guys, because the Jets are pretty much the 49ers of the East. and they want the receivers to also block as well. What are your guys' opinions on Drake London? Start it off with us, Matt.
I might be one of the few people that in the community that are more down on Drake London than a lot of other people are. For my wide receivers, there's a few things that I look for when I'm looking at a wide receiver. That's your ability to create separation, your route running, your yards after the catch ability. Those are all some of the things that I think set you apart and help you excel at the next level. And Drake London doesn't really do any of those things that I look for at a phenomenal level. Yes, he's a great contested catch guy. He's a big body possession receiver, and I think he's going to be a quarterback's best friend. For me personally, I just think he's going to be more of a great NFL wide receiver, less than he is a good fantasy producer. And there is a difference when you look at your fantasy roster. I think he could definitely have that, Brandon Marshall type body frame and play style, but I'm not sure he's going to put up the kind of stats that are going to warrant a top 6-ish pick in rookie drafts this year. And I know I may be in minority when it comes to that, but for what you got to pay for Drake London, I mean, I'm getting guys. I'd rather have guys like some of the other guys we're going to talk about. Your Jamison Williams, some of those other guys that I think are just a better suited for a fantasy wide receiver than maybe Drake London is.
How about you, Parsons? Do you think the same way as Jackson, or are you on the fence on that one?
I think Drake London is one of the guys that you can certainly pit together and say, if you're more analytics, you're going to really like him. If you're more film, you're going to have maybe some concerns. Because on paper, he's pretty much what you're looking for. I mean, we used to laud. I remember I was one that just went after every big wide receiver, that especially was going to have some pedigree and was going to have good enough athleticism. And London is that. And he has the highest highest production score of any of the guys in the first couple rounds projected for the NFL draft. You're saying he's going to get probably a mid-first, if not higher, draft position there by the NFL. He's 21.1 years old when he starts his rookie season. All these are ideal traits, and you're saying he comes in a 6'4" frame, almost 220 pounds, which was a surprising weigh-in. So he's been hyper-productive 3 straight years, and what does he do? Get out of college as an early declaration. So all those things align. I think he's wide receiver 2 right now. It's a pretty crowded tier between 1 and about 3 or 4. So again, I'm bullish on him in general. I do wonder if he goes high enough, is that going to actually be a worse situation than some of those guys that go later in the first round by the NFL? So that'll be the one kind of quibble, but on paper for me, everything kind of checks out, including his comps.
What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, I'm with Chad. To me, it's kind of going to come down to the draft capital and where he goes. He's actually he's wide receiver 4. I think the production's there. I'm not huge on. I do watch the film, but I think he's going to be fine at the next level. The one thing that's it's not going to change my rankings, but again, whoever gets drafted to Green Bay or Kansas City is going to shoot up everyone else's boards. So I am waiting for that post-draft board jump where I'm going to look at guys and be like, okay, I had you at 4, so now I'm probably going to have no shares over you. Similar to Clyde Edwards-Helaire a couple years ago when he was drafted to the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think Chad hit it on the head. I mean, I'm not an analytics guy. I'm not smart enough to do all of that. That's why we have Chad on the show. But I'm a film guy, and I can sit there and grind hours of film, and I think that's where you see the disconnect. Is film guys are not as bullish as on paper. As Chad said, he checks every single box you want him to check. But there's just some tendencies that I see on film and some things that I don't see show up on his film that makes me a little weary of him.
Can I tell you who that is for the running backs for me? Like on paper, I really like who is it there? I really like Rachaad White for Arizona State. And then I put on the tape watching him for the first time since like November, and I was like, this guy? Oh man. So that was one for me where if I went strictly by what I saw, I'd be like, I would be out on him 6 days from Sunday. But we're talking wide receiver, so continue on.
Oh no, you're good. That kind of hurts me a little bit. I'm a Rachaad White guy.
I told you guys, I've been burned by Arizona State running backs too many times. I'm done. I'm done playing the game. That's great analysis by me. Just looking at the school. That's it.
He's done. Well, we're going to look at another school. We're going to look at Matt Jackson. It seems like his favorite school, the Ohio State University. 2 Buckeyes, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. Jackson, who do you think is the better one? Who do you think has the better chance of being a good wide receiver in the NFL? Just separated from the draft capital and everything. I know that translates to a lot of success. But, who do you think has the better skill set to translate to the NFL?
Everything aside, I mean, but depending on what you're looking at, both of these guys can excel. If you're looking for a fantasy producer, I think Garrett Wilson is your guy. He's got the deep speed to be able to take the top off the defense, beat you deep. He is a physical, go up and grab the ball, great body control, tracks the ball well, and is a physical wide receiver. Chris Olave is going to excel as an NFL wide receiver. Just is probably one of the best. There's a few other guys that we're going to talk about hopefully tonight that they compete with him, but one of the best pure route runners in this class. And he showed at the combine that he's got the speed. He's got better speed than I think probably a lot of us sitting here thought that he had. So I think they both are going to excel. Ohio State is known for putting out some pretty good wide receivers. And I think Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson are the next in a long line of some great wide receivers. I mean, they're both going to probably go in the first round of rookie drafts this year. And I'd feel comfortable, honestly, taking either one of them.
Okay. How about you, Parsons? Who do you think is the better one?
Better one. I'm below market on both, so I'll start there. I will say Garrett Wilson. One of the questions I had was how would he test? I knew Olave would test pretty well, but Garrett Wilson was probably one of my biggest risers from pre-combine to post-combine because of his workout and solidifying that really round one pedigree. Yes, it sounds like that's the case, and it sounds like he's going to go higher than Olave. We'll see. Again, that later first, better quarterback, better situation is certainly in play with some of those landing spots. But Garrett Wilson rising up, he was outside my top 10 overall in Superflex. Now he's in my top 6 or 7. So, and a lot of that is he's probably going to go in the top 15 or so, and that might be wide receiver 1 or 2 off the board. So that was one of the biggest things. Olave, I just can't get on board. The comps are not good at all. And he's productive, but I think for his frame, he needs to be more athletic. He needs to be better. And those comps, like guys like Diami Brown are in this comp set. And there is not one round one guy or even top 50 guy that I can say is a true comp in my projection model to Chris Olave. And that's one of my biggest things. That wide receiver, relatively speaking, they're a dime a dozen, and you have to make a really strong case to say, I'm going to go into my rookie draft and I'm going to take a wide receiver early. And I just can't make it with Olave. So he's out there in the mid-teens for me overall. And I know that means you're just not going to get him. So whether you're 2 or 3 spots below what the market is, or you're 10 spots, it really doesn't matter, because it just means you're saying, don't draft him, or I'm not going to draft him. So how high or how low beyond that is really immaterial. So Olave is just a guy right now that I'm out, and I'm kind of wondering, I mean, I guess if he goes to Green Bay, if he goes to Kansas City or something, that may be what juices him up. And I would still be below market. Would he rise? Probably for me. But so when you kind of set the scene like this, set the table before the draft, you're probably going to be below market or ahead of the market when you get there, because the market's going to adjust in kind with landing spot.
And Chad hit the point that I guess I was hitting on is, if you're looking for a pure fantasy production, now that's what we're all looking for. Which guy's going to be a better fantasy wide receiver? It's going to be Garrett Wilson. I mean, Chris Olave is going to be a phenomenal NFL wide receiver for a team. I think he's not going to do the things on your fantasy roster that you're going to draft him and expect him to do.
Yeah, fair enough. And like you said, that's the name of the game, fantasy football. So, Justin, before you have to hop off, tell me what you like between Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave.
So I do have Wilson ahead of Olave, and I'm not too high on both. Maybe it's my Nebraska bias, but I think the thing I have concerns with Wilson is he's a fast guy. I don't think that route running is exactly polished enough. I think he can definitely improve, but I almost wonder if he's going to be kind of a boom or bust player like Deshaun Jackson. He ran that 4.38 40. He's got the speed. He's going to be a deep threat. He's something I wouldn't mind taking in like my dynasty best ball leagues, but I just don't know if I'm there spending a first round pick on him. And then I just didn't really see enough on tape to make me love Chris Olave either. So I'm probably not going to be drafting these guys, but I can understand the reasons to draft them. I think that Garrett Wilson has the upside of being a top end producer. I just don't know how consistent it's going to be. But again, you see a guy like Jamar Chase come in and he does the things he did. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think those are comparable at all. But so I'm kind of out on those two. But before I do go, I'm just going to transition us over. I'm all in on George Pickens. I think Pickens is the guy I want everywhere this year, especially based on his current draft capital going at the end of round 1, early round 2.
Fair enough. What do you guys think about Pickens?
I think Pickens did what he needed to do. He needed to prove that he was coming off of that ACL and was able to still do what we saw him do on tape. The beginning of a season, and he came in. He tested phenomenally. In my eyes, he's a guy that's going to be overlooked a lot because Georgia notoriously does not pass the ball. Up until last year. Last year, they finally started throwing the ball around a little bit.
I didn't think their quarterback play was top notch either.
Yeah. And a lot of those went to Brock Bowers, the tight end. So he's a guy that look out for. I'm going to tell you that right now. But he's going to get overlooked because of that quarterback play, because of the team. And I mean, he's going to go at the top of the second round probably, and he's going to be the steal of your drafts.
Yeah. He's like Elijah Moore almost.
Yeah, his 18, 19-year-old seasons are really top notch, when you look at what you want. And then obviously the injury, he barely played this past year. And one of the big things is we didn't know he was going to test. And frankly, a lot of the talk, if you rewind when he was one of the top Devy wide receivers out there, that, man, he might run the 4.6s. Well, not only did he work out, he put all that to bed. So that was a huge differentiator to me post combine. So he's up in my top 7 or 8, and he's got a lot of similarities to CeeDee Lamb. And I think the fact that how he doesn't have a first round projection by the NFL, he's kind of still in that early second. And when you're saying behind Jahan Dotson, behind some of these guys, watch George Pickens get one of those spots at the end of the first round, and all of a sudden he may be someone that becomes top 5, even in Superflex, just perennial, wide receiver 1, 2, 3 off the board, where he's not going there now. But I think he has just as good of an argument as any of these wide receivers to be in that top 1, 2 discussion when we get to May.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the ACL surgery definitely kind of put him behind as far as like where he was going to get ranked, because
momentum.
The talent is there. The talent is definitely there to be a top 5 receiver in this class. And I think you're absolutely right. He's going to fall in the second round, and they're going to find their number 1 receiver there. I could say easily this could be pick 34 to the Detroit Lions. They could find a receiver that would be amazing for that offense. And yeah,
I thought Amon-Ra St. Brown was the answer. I don't get it.
He was the answer for last year in fantasy.
Just ask all of his fans.
The problem was Jared Goff wasn't the answer. That was your problem.
Well, unfortunately, he'll be the answer for the next 2 years. The price of doing business with the Rams, you got to take on their big ass contracts. But anyways, so let's get going with a couple of these guys. I'm just going to kind of dish out a couple at a time. Another big names, probably rounds out your top 5s, Jameson Williams and Treylon Burks. Just give me a little insert or a little excerpt about these guys. Obviously, Jameson Williams probably the best linear deep threat in this draft. And then Treylon Burks is he's got that vibe of like Deebo Samuel, but for some reason, I don't know about you guys, this guy hits home runs on tape, but he doesn't look like he's fast enough to hit home runs, which is kind of crazy. He had the 4.5 speed at the combine, but like I said, you watch the Arkansas tape, and he is just absolutely distancing himself from these defenders and scoring touchdowns. So kind of just give me what you think about these two guys. Let's go with you first, Matt.
Yeah, so Treylon Burks, just to hit on that point, he plays much faster than he looks on film. I love Treylon Burks. He's firmly in my wide receiver 1 right now. I don't care about that combine testing, to be honest with you, because I've seen what he does on field. He's huge catch radius, goes up and snags the ball. He's got the yards after the catch ability. When I watch him, I don't know, Chad, maybe you can speak on your model. I would love to see who he comps to, but I see a lot of like A.J. Brown type player when I watch Treylon Burks. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from him. And if I can get that type of player, I'm happy about it. Jameson Williams transferred from Ohio State to Alabama, couldn't get the playing time at Ohio State because we all know how good their wide receivers are. Shameless plug. But transferred from Ohio State to Alabama and just absolutely lit the college football world on fire. Was competing right there with Jordan Addison for the Biletnikoff. Was you're take the ball off the or take the top off the defense, deep threat. But this dude runs much better routes than you think he does. I mean, when you really sit down and grind his film, he's kind of a nuanced route runner. He's got really soft hands. I mean, made John Mechie, who we're going to talk about probably later, just completely obsolete. I'm 100% out on John Mechie. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. But Jamison Williams, Treylon Burks, give me both of them. They're both solidly in my top 3 wide receivers right now.
By the way, Ohio State has been pushing players to Alabama for a long time now, and they end up wrecking the world. You guys need to find a way to keep those guys in house.
We got too many. They can't play.
put them on the red shirt deal. Oh, Parsons, how you feeling about these two?
They're pretty polarizing because like with Jamison Williams, I wish he had more production, basically a one-hit wonder, but that speed, is really tough to duplicate. I think they both have unicorn traits, and unicorn traits can lead to unicorn outcomes for the NFL and for Dynasty. So Jamison Williams, I mean, you're talking about a guy that can take the top off and really be the best vertical threat, maybe one of the best in the NFL at his peak, if he fully hits in the NFL for what he can do. But he's so rare in that he's so skinny, and that was sort of the Devonta Smith a year ago. Like, can somebody, I mean, he's 6'2", 179, for goodness sake. I mean, someone with my BMI is not really going to be successful. I would get broken in half in the NFL. I could not get off press coverage. So it's really hard for me to translate. Now, obviously, he runs like a gazelle. Slight difference. But yeah, 23 BMI. It's historically rare. So obviously, when you if he gets round 1 pedigree projected to have, you kind of need to wash a lot of that away. So a one-hit wonder, but if he goes round 1, he's as fast as a cheetah. Like, you kind of need to put some of these quibbles aside. Like we're getting too much into the weeds. And frankly, I think Treylon Burks running in the 4.5s is another one. Well, he's gonna run 4.4 and 4.35. He's gonna just toast this thing. He's gonna be Julio Jones or Calvin Johnson. Like, that didn't happen, and I think it's because the expectations were so high that now we feel like he's a faller. Well, he's still a unicorn. We're talking about a guy that I saw a report he played at 235, 240 this past year, and he weighed in at 225. So if that's true, and he put up 22, 23 miles per hour max speed on tape this past year, if that was at 230 plus, that's unbelievable. So what Matt was saying with the play speed and just put on the tape, he's pulling away from guys, and he can play, put the ball in his hands behind the line of scrimmage. I just think that this is what we're looking for: 6'2 plus, 220 plus. Frankly, I mean 225, 230 plus, and a guy that was productive. And a guy that was productive on an offense in Arkansas that really doesn't have much quarterback play. And he wasn't the wide receiver 1. He just took over the job. And I almost can't even remember the Devy guy that he took the job from. But so Treylon Burks, I mean, this is the type of guy. He's still my wide receiver 1. It's a little begrudgingly so. But again, I think the top 4 or 5 wide receivers, they're all going to go round 1. They all warrant going in the first round for rookie drafts. And Treylon Burks is just the biggest rare guy, in my opinion. The others, they're rare in their own, kind of unique little ways. But Treylon Burks, you just can't find guys that move like this, that are productive, that are going to get round 1. I mean, all that in one package. This is the total. We're being way too picky. If it's like, if anyone sits there and says Treylon Burks isn't in my top 3 receivers, like, I don't know what you're looking for, because this is sort of the alpha profile of it. This could hit like a high wide receiver 1. And I think what we said previously, guys like maybe even Jamison Williams, but Olave and Garrett Wilson, they just kind of blend in. We see these profiles all the time, every year. And Treylon Burks do not come along every year.
I can tell you why. I mean, his testing numbers were so bad because, I mean, I don't know how much you guys watched of the combine, but it looked like Treylon Burks wasn't prepared for that combine. I mean, his 40 form was awful. His vertical jump form was awful. I mean, it looks like no one trained him to do the things that he was being asked to do. And
maybe he wants to fade to the Packers.
There you go.
I'm seeing it on Twitter all the time. It's Treylon Burks, N'Keal Harry, and that drives me so. But
N'Keal Harry is just a bad beat. Like, people think that there's bulletproof prospects that they can't miss. Every single guy. Corey Davis is technically a miss, and he even went high up in the draft. So all these profiles that are like, oh wow, they're so great, they still have a non 100% hit rate. So just, I mean, and N'Keal Harry went to the Patriots.